This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today on this Tuesday, May 28th? We're in the last week of May. Getting ready to turn it over to June. I want to say thanks to everybody who's watching us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You're watching us at Joe Gaither 6. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. If you like that, or you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, Amazon, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can find the Joe Gaither Show. We're going to have our friend Joey Van Zummeran join us today from MizzouCentral. We'll talk about Missouri football in about 20, 25 minutes or so. Well, first, we got to do a little weekend recap. And to get started on a weekend recap, we want to say we hope that you all had a blessed Memorial Day, a good Memorial Day. Obviously, it's more of a somber holiday, and we want to thank those who have made the sacrifice for our country. I want to thank the families who are dealing or living with that sacrifice as well. And I hope you guys spent some time yesterday with your families and in remembrance of those men and women who have served this great country and laid down their lives for this country. All right, with that out of the way, it's just Tuesday, and we need to do some weekend recap, and it was a massive, massive weekend for Alabama athletics. If you want to jump in on the comments, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither 6. We invite your comment, question, query, or complaint, whatever you want to talk about, but we're going to kick this bad boy off talking softball. I have been up and down on the softball season this year, much like probably you have been watching this team. But surprise, surprise, surprise. Not a surprise if you are in the softball family, if you're on Team 28. The ladies went to Knoxville and defeated the Tennessee Volunteers to make their 15th College World Series. We just got back from the airport. We're going to have some video loading as we speak on BamaCentral.com, on Bama Central's YouTube channel. It actually looks like it's still loading there. My dashboard looks a little funny. We'll find out what's going on with that after the show. But we heard from Patrick Murphy, we heard from Caleb Beaver, and we heard from Kinley Cahalan at the airport as the ladies and the team is getting ready to fly to Oklahoma City. Patrick Murphy saying, we're one of 3 programs that have been to the World Series more times than we haven't. 15 times they're going to be going to the World Series. And look, I didn't expect it. I thought going up to Knoxville that it was going to be a huge challenge, especially offensively. And it was. It absolutely was. On the Friday game, look, we had an episode that ended right towards the start of the Friday game where Alabama jumped off to a nice little lead. But same old story, same old song and dance, my friend. Late in the game, a little bit of an error on Callie Havlin in second base. You get an extra base runner, boom, home run, 3-2 Tennessee, and it looks like, oh my gosh, it might be a short weekend. Because really, look, Alabama played marginally better than Tennessee in the first game and should have won that first game. And if you win that first game, you've got all the pressure on Tennessee, who was, the 4th overall seed in the tournament, where Alabama was the 14th seed. And Alabama had lost the series to Tennessee earlier in the regular season. We covered that. During the week, getting loaded up. But the ladies came back on Saturday, and what a marathon. 14-inning marathon. Oh, my gosh. Absolutely just gritty, gutsy. I don't know what you want to call it. Absolutely just refused to die on Saturday, going 14 innings, winning 3-2, flipping the score on them. And just look, I'm sitting there Saturday about the 5th, 6th inning. I'm like, okay, the game's almost over. I'm going to go get ready to do my exercise and, get into some other things for the day. And middle of the 7th, I said, you know what? I'm just going to put this on in the back where I'm exercising. And I got all the way through my exercise and the ladies were still playing. Caleb Beaver, 160 some odd pitches on Friday, on the Saturday day, and just dominating the circle. The pitching staff has been incredible basically all year long. Obviously, you get a couple blips here on the radar here through the season when you play as many games as they played. The record now is 38-18. So what's that? Roughly, that's 48 plus 8 is 56 games. 56 games, you're going to have a couple blips with the pitching staff. But the ladies have been absolutely nails inside the circle all year long. And it was that again on Saturday, Sunday, and really on Friday as well. I mean, you give up the 3-run homer and you lose the game on Friday. Look, one little mistake and bam, it cost you the game. That's what's been so frustrating watching this Alabama team this year is, the pitchers have performed and played so well. Oh, great. Awesome. Great. Another great performance from Caleb Beaver and Jocelyn Brisky, and everybody's pitching in and really holding it down on the defensive end. Oh, but one little mistake cost you. Oh, you walk a batter, you hit by a pitch, you walk a batter, you have an error, and then a 3-run homer. And it's like, oh my gosh, all the hard work has been basically unraveled. But the ladies, unbelievable. On Saturday, just hung in there, never say die. You go 14 innings, basically a doubleheader, two games in one for the result to go 3-2 and force a, if necessary, third game. And honestly, through the game 1 and game 2, I mean, yes, the scoreboard said win one, lose one. But if you watch the games, Alabama played better than Tennessee in both of the first 2 games. And then that third game, Sunday, I mean, drama through many layers. They come out, oh, bam, you have strikeout, and then you get 2 hit by pitch. And basically, Riley Valentine comes up and mashes a big old grand slam. And from there, I mean, you look at the final score, that's it, basically. 4-1, right? 4-1. Tennessee was able to get 1 run back late in the game. I believe it was in the 7th inning. But you have a huge rain delay. 3 hours. And I mean, Alabama softball, no stranger to rain delay. 3 hours in delay in the locker room after mashing a grand slam, getting 4 runs up in the first inning, which is a huge accomplishment for this softball team. And you go into rain delay. And what happens in the locker room? Oh, you've lost all your momentum. Everything is kind of fizzling. But no, Jocelyn Brisky comes out, the freshman, and basically shuts it all down through 6 and change innings. And Caleb Beaver comes in and closes it out. And the ladies upset the Tennessee Volunteers and go to their 15th College World Series, and they're going to be playing on Friday, I believe, is let me see, broadcast schedule, daily schedule. That's what I want right there. They're playing on Friday, right? Austin Regional. Nope, we got to scroll on down. We don't want the regionals. We want, this guy. They're playing Thursday, Thursday at noon on ESPN. They're taking on UCLA. You got Alabama, UCLA. You got Duke, Oklahoma. You got Stanford, Texas, and Oklahoma State and Florida. So there's some loaded teams. Obviously, your eyes go right to Texas and Oklahoma as pretty much the favorites. And then you see fellow conference member Florida there. What? You want to count it as 2 SEC teams or 4 SEC teams making it to the College World Series? But here you are. You really, if you watch the story arc of the season, there was no way that this team makes it. The offense was just too inept. But over the last 2 weekends, I mean, you go back 3 weeks, Alabama's in the SEC tournament. They go 14 innings against the LSU Tigers and basically can't get anything going through the entire 14 innings. This team has really endured almost everything that you can endure. Oh, we have no offense. Oh, the pitchers have injuries. I mean, Coach Murphy talked about it today, the injuries that they sustained through the year, the surgeries that they sustained through the year, and to have the whole lineup back in action is really a testament to their character. And yes, I have been critical of the offense and critical of the approach, but that's not from a point of, oh, we hate these girls or, oh, these girls are no good. It's just a frustration point because the pitching staff in my limited knowledge of softball, the pitching staff has been national championship worthy. And what a statement to say the year after Montana Fouts graduates and moves on. You bring in Caleb Beaver, you have Jocelyn Brisky as a freshman, you got Jayla Torrance sitting right there as a utility girl. The pitching staff has really been national championship worthy. The offense was just completely inept. And for them to have the 14-inning game against LSU, be one and done in the SEC tournament, and then they get a favorable draw. A lot of it probably has to do with their earliest part of the season playing in the SEC. And, we heard it from Katie Wyndham when she joined us last that the mid-teens teams, 12 to 20 in the NCAA tournament, were all losing around Alabama as well. And so it fell very favorably for them to host that regional. All right, so they go 1-0 on that Friday, and you're like, oh my gosh, scraping by against, who was that, UC Upstate, a team that you should be smacking across the face. And then you go from there to having a huge offensive explosion on Sunday. 9 runs in that Sunday day to basically close out the regional, and it's like the lid has come off. Now, against Tennessee, the lid was not completely off, but the Tennessee pitching staff was also national championship worthy. You saw that this weekend. If you watched any of their series, they were painting the corners. They were really, really effective in the circle. And so to battle through that and get to Oklahoma City, look, all bets are off at this point. I'm not going to sit here and tell you or sit here and claim, Alabama's going to win the national championship this weekend. I might have said it or two in a time or two in group chats with some of my friends. But at this point, with the pitching staff that's been as consistent as they've been all season long, right? And the offense finding itself in clutch moments in the last 2 weekends, I wonder, Alabama's going to be a dangerous team to face this weekend in Oklahoma City. Now, it's going to be double elimination format, just like the last couple of weekends have been. You got to lose twice. But I think, oh my gosh, all pressure is off you, Alabama. All the bets are off you, Alabama. And so you go out to Oklahoma City, and okay, you put Kayla Beaver in the circle. You got Jocelyn Brisky to back her up. You're going to give yourself a fighting chance on Thursday against UCLA, who eliminated Georgia in their super regional. UCLA, obviously a historic softball program, but so was Alabama. All bets are off at this point, and I think that this team really is positioned to. Well, they're going to go. I got a feeling in my gut that they're going to have a really good weekend. They're not going to go 2-0. They're not going to go 2-0. We'll say that. And when you thought about it maybe last weekend in Knoxville, I think there was a pretty decent chance of going 2-0, especially losing that first game. So be watching it on Thursday. Katie Wyndham is flying from Alabama to Oklahoma City today as well. So she's going to be covering all of it for us at Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We will hopefully try to get caught up with her at some point tomorrow after her travel settles down to get a little preview of the entire College World Series. But I'm excited. I mean, I went from, oh my gosh, this season needs to end because they can't find a bat to save their life to, okay, roll the dice and see what happens. And I think that if you have been maybe out on Patrick Murphy over the last 3 years, look, we've talked about the struggles of the program. We have, and it's valid. The offensive struggles have been evident for 2.5, 3 years. It's valid. But the results, you've gone to the Women's College World Series in back-to-back seasons, basically willing yourself, pulling the teeth of the program to get to Oklahoma City. And you got to give Coach Murphy a lot of credit for pressing the right buttons at the right time. You think back to Saturday's game, you get Lauren Johnson in a pinch hit situation, and she's able to work her way around to third base, and Lauren Johnson scores the winning run in the 14th inning. Like, he has been a master at pressing the right buttons at the right time. And sure, has the consistency maybe fallen off a touch in the last 3 years in the regular season? Sure. I mean, it's undeniable. They were under 500 for the first time in SEC play under Murphy this year. It's undeniable. But do you really give a rat's rear end about what happens in the regular season if in the last week of the year, when college softball is all over your TV, Alabama is still sitting right there in the Women's College World Series? No, you don't care. I mean, maybe you do, but I don't, because at the end of the year, you've got 8 teams left. And boom, Alabama is once again one of them. And so you can talk about hot seed, and you would be wrong. You would be foolish. Maybe there's some approach tinkering that needs to happen still with the program. And I think that's a fair, maybe not criticism, but a fair comment. But at the end of the day, the bottom line results are that Patrick Murphy got two teams in the last two seasons to Oklahoma City that really overcame deficiencies at the right moments. Now, if they do go 2-0, come on, it's not that big of a deal. If they go 2-0 this week, I think everything that I just said still stands true. You went through, you got a nice little draw in regionals, but it's not easy. They were not supposed to beat Tennessee. That's a big upset. You only scored one run against the Vols in regular season play, right? You only scored the one run, and so it's not easy to go up there, and their pitching staff was incredible, and they are the best team in the SEC pretty much the entire season, and to go up there and end their season, oh my gosh, how sweet it is, and how really, I think, encouraging for the program, and they're going to go out there to Oklahoma City, and I think that they're going to have a good showing. I think there's some breaking, I wrote a story for Mechie, yada, yada, yada. Yes, please. I'm on my show. Yeah, we're doing a little Bama Central communication. You're about to see a story about John Mechie winning the George Halas Award in the NFL. Hunter Deceiver is about to publish that on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Congratulations to you, John Mechie. We got to get a little. Blake Byler is actually publishing another story. Purdue basketball. Alabama and Purdue is locked in their home dates, and so you're about to see a story on BamaCentral.com from Blake Byler about the Alabama-Purdue games getting locked in home. Ooh, I'm excited about that. We'll talk about basketball in just a minute before we get to Joey Van Zummeran. But first, you got to go back to the diamond again, not for softball, but for baseball. We went up to Hoover last week. Alabama was one and done, and it was a fine Tuesday. 1 week ago, I was sitting in the Hoover Met press box, and I absolutely love that place. You absolutely should go to the SEC baseball tournament if you like sports at all, or if you like a family-friendly environment. If you like it all, the SEC tournament was great. It was awesome. And congratulations to Tennessee for winning the SEC tournament. Tennessee drawing the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But this is not a Tennessee show. This is an Alabama show with some of the other Walsh Writing Network programs mixed in as well. We'll mix in some of Missouri in just a minute. Alabama baseball goes into Selection Monday and we were talking on the Joe Gaither show that Alabama was going to get a 3 seed, that Alabama had fallen pretty comfortably and securely into the 3 seed. But no, Joe Gaither doesn't know what he's talking about. Alabama draws a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament and is not going to Norman, Oklahoma per Division I baseball's prediction. No, Alabama's going to Tallahassee. They're going to go down to play Florida State. They're playing in the Florida State Regional, Alabama as the 2 seed against number 3 seed UCF, right? UCF, and number 4 seed Stetson. And honestly, I like the draw. I mean, you don't have to go out to Oklahoma. That's a first. That's a positive. Tallahassee, not that far away for the Alabama baseball faithful that want to be a part of supporting the program. Not that far away. You played 2 games against Florida State in fall ball, so you're a little bit familiar with them. Obviously, massive changes. Fall ball is not it's not a 1-to-1 carryover. Obviously, there are some changes, but you've seen some of these pitchers before. Several months ago, was that September, October, that we were at Sewell Thomas Stadium? Yeah, mid-October that we saw some of those fall ball games, and Alabama played well against Florida State in those games. Obviously, Florida State got the hosting bid and got the hosting slot because of their strong season, but you're not in a terrible position, I think, if you're the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I think that this weekend's going to be really a chance to, if you can pull off an upset. I mean, you're playing UCF first, right? You're playing UCF first, and that's going to be on the Friday, I believe. Let me make sure I'm correct on that, as my schedules are all a little bit wonky with the 3-day weekend. Alabama and UCF is Friday at 5:00, and you're going to be able to watch it on ESPN Plus. We'll have coverage for it. Kim Rankin and Will Miller will be all over the coverage for us at BamaCentral.com if you just want to check it out on the internet. But 5:00 against UCF. You win that first game, and you're rolling into Saturday, probably playing, let's see, Florida State will play Stetson. The two winners will play. You're probably playing Florida State on Saturday. Yeah, it's going to be a tough environment, and they're the home team and the favorite. But you get to Saturday 1-0 after beating UCF. You're rolling the dice, baby. And I like this team's mindset. Look, what does 2 weeks worth of not really playing? I mean, yeah, you played last Tuesday, so now you're on 7 days. You're going to get basically 10 days off. And we talked about it on the program on Wednesday after Alabama was eliminated that I felt like the arm situation, particularly the starting pitching arm situation, was a little bit troublesome. You saw Craig Ferrone play. He started the Tuesday game last Tuesday after pitching down in Auburn, 100-some odd pitches down in Auburn. Look, would you have liked to have had a better showing in the SEC tournament? I think absolutely. I think undeniably you would have liked to have gotten to the double elimination portion. We talked about that being a threshold that Alabama should have reached. But on the flip side, you got yourself 10 days rest. You got yourself a favorable draw. You didn't earn a 3 seed. You earned a 2 seed, basically on the respect of the RPI, the respect of the conference. And look, Alabama played pretty well. I mean, under a first-year head coach who dealt with a lot of transition. So you get a number 2 seed to go down to Tallahassee. And right here, once again, you just roll the dice and you see what happens. I like Alabama's matchup against UCF. We'll try to get Will Miller or Kim Rankin to join us to talk about this weekend series. And we'll get really excited about Alabama on both sides, the softball and the baseball, as the Diamond Sports are coming to a head. Last thing for us on the Alabama side is really basketball related. You guys know we love basketball on the Joe Gaither show. And we're 24 plus 9, 24 plus 8 is 32. You're about 32, 33 hours away from a Mark Sears and Jaron Stevenson decision. And I think both decisions are coming down to the wire. Honestly, we look at Kevin Sweeney, right? Kevin Sweeney. Yeah. We look at Kevin Sweeney, and he's all over the should I stay, should I go stuff for SI.com. You can find him at CBB_Central. He's a great follow, but basically says that Alabama, the interesting part to me, that Jaron Stevenson's decision is not as cut and dry as I think maybe I had assumed, or maybe a lot of us had assumed. It sounds like Jaron Stevenson's getting some pretty favorable feedback. He thinks it's a lot more than 50-50 than it was. I thought it was more like, okay, 80% he's going to come back. But Kevin Sweeney plugged into things. He's about 50-50 is what he tweeted today at 10:55. And then you look at Mark Sears, his comments. Mark Sears, highly consequential. Not sure he can get more than a 2-way contract. And Kevin Sweeney says he probably should go back to school. Now, look, that's music to your ears if you're following the Alabama Crimson Tide. I still think you're going to want to be on pins and needles. He's working out for the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow. And we've seen a couple of mock drafts where he's slated right in there with Milwaukee. I think he might be a nice little backup option to Damian Lillard. But Kevin Sweeney's plugged in. A 2-way contract. You go Mark Sears on a 2-way contract. So you don't have that guaranteed money. Now, that's up to the team to decide if they want to give you guaranteed money or not on a 2-way. I think Mark Sears' decision is very, very much still in the air with about 33 hours to go. So Blake Byler is covering all that for BamaCentral.com, and you're going to be able to see really as soon as Jaron Stevenson announces that he's staying in the draft or coming back to Alabama. And same thing for Mark Sears, whether he's staying in the draft or coming back to Alabama. That's going to be the biggest piece of news really probably this week outside of the on-field action out in Oklahoma and down in Tallahassee for the Alabama softball and baseball team, respectively. We're going to turn things over now to continue our expansion on the Walsh Writing Network with our friend Joey Van Zummeran. You can follow him at JoeyVZ on the Twitter machine. He does all kinds of work, not only for MizzouCentral.com, but for those wretched Green Bay Packers as well. But we appreciate his expertise, and anytime you get to join him, it's Joey Van Zummeran, part of the Walsh Writing Network right here on the Joe Gaither Show. Joey, man, what's been going on? Oh, it's been since the Combine.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been doing good. I got home from Mizzou about 3 weeks ago, so working the summer job because have a busy summer plan ahead, and those trips to Mizzou games and Packer games won't be paying for themselves.
What is the summer job? You want to reveal that or keep it close to the vest?
Sure. It's at a sporting goods store, just cashier. So got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. We love a hardworking man, and we don't look down on any employment, whether you're listening to us out there on the streets doing construction or you're listening to us on a nice, cushy office job. We appreciate you all your hard work, and Joey Van Zummeran getting on the workforce at a sporting goods store. Joey, man, what's been going on with your spring? We last left you at the combine, and Missouri had a pretty nice little draft, honestly. Yep. And then what we're going to do today is talk spring practice. But really, what has been how has your spring been going since the combine?
Yeah, so right after I got back from the combine, Mizzou with spring football was already in full swing, so I became a busy spring manager and going to spring practice 2-3 times a week, and then managing that with classes too. And it was a great football season or spring season for Missouri. Obviously, you're going to get the cliches, you're going to get the coach speak at an all-time high from all of them. That's what they got to do.
I love Eli.
He does, with all respect to him, he does give the classic coach speak of we're better than we've ever been this spring. We've got a lot of hard-working, tough-nosed guys, but then he always makes it interesting, of course. But, yeah, great spring for Missouri. Looks like they're going to have a great team, and looks like they're going to be able to continue the momentum. Then, of course, with the Diamond Sports Baseball, they had their first-year head coach, Carrick Jackson, just wrapping up their season. Not as great as they wanted it to be, for sure, but it looks like they're heading into the right direction there. And then softball season just came to this end this Sunday in the Super Regionals against Duke, winning 2 extra innings in the third game of that series. Missouri fell there by 1 run. But yeah, great spring for Missouri sports and a great spring for me too.
All right, so let's get into spring football with Missouri. We're starting to tease some, we want to do records, and we're not going to do record today because that's a different conversation. We had spring practice. Missouri lost a defensive coordinator. Eli Drinkwitz made a hire. You've had, I'm on 24/7 Sports right now, 15 incoming transfers. Yep. So that's where I want to start with the transfers. I'm going to just read some off, and I want you to identify maybe your biggest, your favorite, your most impactful. I just would take this in any direction. You got Corey Flagg out of Miami, linebacker. Chris McKellen, defensive lineman out of Florida. We're getting a Georgia State running back, Marcus Carroll. We're getting a Clemson cornerback, Toriano Pride Jr. We love that name. Zion Young is an edge rusher from Michigan State. Drew Pine from Arizona State. Darius Smith from Georgia, an edge rusher. We love getting Georgia transfers. Appalachian State, Nate Noel, running back. And then you get a linebacker, Brady Holtzman from Wyoming. Caden Green from Oklahoma, offensive tackle. You got to get those tackles. Sterling Webb, defensive lineman out of New Mexico. Marcus Bryant, a tackle from SMU. Eddie Kelly, defensive lineman from Georgia Tech. Jeremiah Beasley from the national champions, linebacker from Michigan. And a week ago or so? And this was somebody that Alabama was familiar with, Khalil Jacobs, South Alabama linebacker. So you load it up in the transfer portal. That's basically a full recruiting class. What do you like about them, or who's going to stand out and who's going to make some plays for Missouri this year?
Sure. I mean, the main thing that stands out to me from those names you listed off is just all the linebackers they recruited, and specifically really the inside guys that I'm really excited to see how the new defense coordinator, like you mentioned, Corey Batoon, is going to use him in his defense. The system he's going to run is a 4-2-5, just like Blake Baker, who is Missouri's previous coordinator. But obviously, correct. But there's obviously going to be little tweaks from coordinator to coordinator, even if they're running the same scheme. And one of the things that Batoon is bringing along with him is this joker role that he mentioned at the start of camp. And that's basically just kind of that hybrid. I'm not too familiar with it, but the way he described it is that hybrid of a guy, basically who can rush the passer and then also drop back in coverage, and you have no concern with him doing either. He can excel in both, and it really makes it difficult for a quarterback to read the defense, especially when you have these quarterbacks that are a little more inexperienced. Makes it difficult for them to predict what the defense is doing. Allows them to do some creative stuff. And so Khalil Jacobs is one of those guys that can do that. Darius Smith and also Corey Flagg, the linebacker from Miami. Really just all very versatile athletic guys. And we saw in spring practice they were running Brayshawn Littlejohn, who is an incoming freshman. They were running him there, and then also somebody else whose name is escaping me right now. But I think it's going to be not only a competition there, but also not so much of a set-in-stone thing. I think they're going to try out different guys there, especially with all the transfers they brought in. I mean, they've always recruited not only through the transfer portal, but through their freshman class, just very versatile, athletic guys, and not traditional hard-hitting linebacker. So I'm excited to see how those guys are used in Batune's defense, like I said, just with their versatility. Some other guys that stand out are Toriano Pride. He's a St. Louis guy. And really, with this transfer class, you can tell that there was a few guys on Missouri's radar that they wanted to recruit out of high school, especially the St. Louis and Kansas City guys. Eli Drinkwitz has made it such a mission to lock down those borders. And they recruited quite a few of those back now. And I think I'm interested to know just kind of what that process is like. It's almost becoming like the NFL now, I mean, in many different ways, but also just with how you have to recruit and how you have to keep tabs on your players, because all the time you see with NFL teams, they'll have guys that they really like on their draft boards, and then 2 or 3 years later, they'll become available in free agency and they'll instantly sign them. And I think that's becoming pretty similar here in college football. And so Toriano Pratt is one of those guys from East St. Louis, was teammates with Luther Burden. I would think they overlapped at some point in their high school career, but a 4-star recruit, just an incredible athlete, competed in track in high school as well. Missouri really needed to fill in some more cornerback depth after losing both Chris Abrams-Drain and Ennis Rakestraw in the draft. And then finally, another Kansas City, another Missouri guy, this guy, Caden Green from Kansas City. He was a 4-star recruit. He had 5 starts in his true freshman season at Oklahoma. And I know one of the things we're going to talk about later on is the most exciting matchup in Missouri's season. And that game against Oklahoma is definitely catching my eye, because Caden Green was one of them that kind of started, or I guess reignited this rivalry between Missouri and Oklahoma. So great to have him here too.
All right, so I'm not going to read all the names on the outgoing list because there's about 20 of them. And look, everybody who's gone, we're moving on from them. They're not part of the program. But if there's any one or two, I mean, I'm seeing a couple quarterbacks, I'm seeing a couple linebackers, the same sort of thing. I mean, just like with Alabama, just like with any college program right now, it's a revolving door around the transfer portal. Is there anybody that you think, oh my gosh, we're going to watch this guy in college football this year and wish he was still in a Missouri uniform?
Yeah, maybe not this year. But I do think one that stands out and is somebody to watch down the line is quarterback Jabari Johnson. And I need to look where he transferred to Oregon State. He was a 4-star quarterback, spent his freshman season as a redshirt for Missouri this past year. I don't think Missouri is going to be reeling too much from the loss of him, with all due respect to him, but they've been able to recruit quarterbacks. They have Matt Zollers coming in next year, one of the top recruits in 2025. But I will be interested to see how his career goes. They did have to recruit another quarterback, Drew Prine, out of Arizona State, to replace that depth, especially with their backup, Sam Horn, undergoing Tommy John surgery. Another guy, I mean, the other two, the 3 big losses that I highlighted, guys that saw playing time last year, was edge rusher DJ Westflack, inside linebacker Damian Wilson, and then offensive guard EJ Domo-Ogar. But I do think Missouri replaced those guys fine and more with their losses in the transfer portal.
All right, so I want to ask you about Brady Cook. Brady Cook kind of really jumped onto the scene. Well, he was already there, but he really had a strong year in 2023.
Yes.
And what do I have him for? I have him for 3,000 yards passing, ranked 8th in a single season for Missouri. Really had a good year. 157 passing efficiency. He was the catalyst behind the Missouri offense. What do we think about Brady Cook taking a step forward and becoming, I mean, you look across the conference, there's a lot of good quarterbacks, but as a whole, the quarterback class for the NFL, not really that favorable. What do you think about Brady Cook taking a big step forward and at the end of the year being in that, this guy might be a first-round pick. This guy might be one of the top, 8, 7 quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy talk for Brady Cook be in the first round of the draft, but also a year ago at this point, I mean, the NFL drafts in general,
Knicks.
kind of like Sounded like a far shot for Brady. But yeah, I mean, he did really have an impressive year this past year. And I think going into this year, an interesting storyline to watch will just be how much more confident he is right away. I mean, the whole team pretty much seemed to have his back last year in the offseason. But you got to think.
The fans didn't.
Exactly. And so the amount of
Really,
confidence
the starting quarterback. I will never forget his
Yeah.
rant going at Eli Drinkowitz. Oh, it's such a shame. You're booing the starting quarterback. He'd go out there and give it all for you guys. You're booing him.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing I was going to bring up, just the amount of confidence he's going to have for this full offseason now and going into this season. Yeah, that game you mentioned in Kansas State, one of his best performances of this past season, and especially because it was I think it was kind of a full circle moment almost for him to have that incredible performance against Kansas State, because last year, the game in 2022 against Kansas State, they go to Manhattan and get whipped. I think it was 40-12 was the final score in that one. And then just a complete turn of the page, not only for Cook, but for Missouri football as a whole, to go out there and have a really tough win against Kansas State. That game against Kansas State in 2022 is also where Brady Cook suffered that elbow injury or shoulder injury somewhere on the arm. Took a rough sack early on in the game, and he played through that injury for the whole season. And I think that colored a lot of people's perception of him, because they didn't really know of that injury status of him, and he was playing through that. So yeah, full circle moment for him against Kansas State. And yeah, I think the main thing for him is going to be the confidence that he's going to have going into the season. I mean, more always helps to have more reps with your wide receivers, so he's going to have plenty of those banked up as well. And he can have full confidence going into the season that he is the guy, even though Drinkwitz did build up a quarterback competition up to week 2 of the 2023 season between Cook and Sam Horn. I don't know if that was all that much of a competition. Brady Cook got 30 passing attempts against South Dakota State. Sam Horn got 5, and Drinkwitz was pretty much decided after that. But again, the confidence he's going to have that, and excited to see how he does this upcoming season.
All right, so you kind of hit on a couple of areas of spring practice. Then we're moving in the new defensive coordinator. We're kind of adjusting the defense just a little bit, the 4-2-5. You guys up there in Missouri, what was the kind of vibe or feel, or this is the big story, this is the 2 big stories from spring practice that we're taking away from spring practice?
Yeah, I mean, the defense was a big thing, obviously. The one thing I really came away with was how exciting this wide receiver room is. Not only with the guys at the top, Luther Bird and Theo Weiss, obviously, but then also, Mookie Cooper is another veteran in that group, but also the young guys that they got coming along here. And only this incoming freshman class, we didn't see either of them at spring practice. They weren't there yet, but Courtney Crutchfield and James Madison, both 4-star recruits coming in there. And then also Joshua Manning, who I believe is going into his sophomore year here. He was the MVP, the offensive MVP in that spring game. So they are really building some exciting depth there. And I think more than anything, it's just the versatility of the way they can attack with that wide receiver room. You have Burden, who is just an incredible guy after the catch, incredible route runner. And it seems like he's even improving in that aspect. Jacob Peeler, the wide receivers coach, I asked him about in the spring, just what has Luther even reached his ceiling of how much he can do after the catch specifically and in the slot? And the answer was yes. And basically, I believe the answer he gave me was basically just about his route running, knowing his stopping points, so that, in college, a lot of time with the incredible athleticism he has, he can win so many times just with that. But if he can really refine his route running, he could become even better. Weiss, obviously a deep threat, a guy that can get a lot of 50-50 balls. Cooper, really fast, shifty guy. And then, like I said, all those young guys you got coming in, it's going to be really exciting to watch them.
All right, so at the end of the year, and we've covered this before on the Joe Gaither Show, we're talking to Joey Van Zummeran of MizzouCentral. Make sure you follow him at JoeyVZ_ on the Twitter machine. The end of the year with a huge, it's a great year anyways, but a huge win over Ohio State. So let's take a conversation in 2 different ways. The first step, or the first side is, how does Missouri continue the momentum and really take that step into maybe that top 4 or 5 in the SEC? Because, golly, the SEC is going to get a lot harder.
Yep.
But the other side, if they don't, if Missouri is unable, like if I don't want last year to be a fluke for you guys because it's a lot of fun to cover good teams. But if it was a fluke and Alabama and Missouri does take a step back, what do you think the reason it will be that they take a step back?
I think it's the same answer for both, Joe, and that's really just the team is going to make or break on just the leadership and the culture they're able to either sustain or is going to fall off this year. And that was the big difference from 2022 and 2023 that we heard from a lot of players. And, you look at the difference between the 2022 and 2023 team, and obviously they needed a year of experience. That was Brady Cook's first year starting. You had Luther Burden, who had a lot of hype coming out of East St. Louis as a 5-star. They needed to get more experience. But they really, it's not like they had too many newcomers in 2023 that completely changed everything. And it was really just the leadership. And Darius Robinson was a fantastic guy to talk about this. A lot of Cody Schrader at the Combine called Robinson the greatest leader he's ever been around. And so Robinson really knew what was going on with that. And he said after the game in Kentucky, which was week 6 in Lexington, and Darius said after that the big difference between 2023 and 2022 for Missouri was just the culture and leadership. He said something pretty blunt, like there was guys in 2022 that just were not about the team, guys that did not want to be there. And that Robinson, along with the other veteran leaders on the team, realized that they needed to step up. Took the cliche. I don't know if you'll understand this reference, but like the TikTok sports meme of "Coach is right, guys. If we want to win, it's on us." And realizing the step forward they needed to take in the leadership department, and they absolutely did that. Created this culture and created this buy-in. And I think. Specifically when you're looking at a program like Missouri that doesn't have the automatic culture like you guys do at Alabama of having this winning history and recent memory, having to create that buy-in, having to have everybody play with that chip on their shoulder that they did with something to prove mindset. They really created that, and I think they're going to have to do that again this year. They lost quite a few leaders with Javon Foster, Darius being one of those, Cody Schrader, Rakestraw, and Chris Hamstrain, like I mentioned, Jake C. Carlisle, the safety as well. So they're going to have guys step up. And I do think, looking at this roster, I have no doubt that they have the guys to be able to do that. I think Chuck Hicks is one of them. He is a veteran inside linebacker who will be probably starting this year. He got a lot of playing time last year with Tyron Hopper and Chad Bailey both being out with injury. He's a guy that's gotten a lot of praise for being a great leader. I think Brady Cook, too. He's obviously, like I said, had the support of his team going into last season, but now, again, that confidence, and I think as a quarterback, you're kind of always growing as a leader, and I think he's going to take a step forward in that as well. And then an interesting name with this, I was looking at the running back room, and they have a few guys like Tavares Jones, who they recruited and has been in their program for a few years now, but they don't really have somebody who has gotten a lot of playing time to be able to lead the way. You have Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel, like you mentioned earlier, coming in, but who's actually done it? And they don't really have that right now. I do think it'll be interesting. One of the guys that I wouldn't say have my eye on, but just wanted to write down and mention was Christopher Cray, who is a name you've probably never heard of and wasn't a name I even heard of until this spring. He was voted as one of the team captains for the spring game. And so the next day at press conferences, I was talking to all the reporters, like, we have a interview scheduled with Chris Cray, like, what are we supposed to ask him? Who is this guy? And so we just started asking. It was first Curtis Luper, the running backs coach. We talked to him, and we were expecting just, like, we knew he had played a little bit of special teams, so we thought he'd just say, he's, all about the team, whatever, not afraid to play special teams. And Coach Luper goes up there and gives us incredible praise for Chris Gray, saying that he was actually the leader of the running back room and not Cody Schrader last year. And what he meant by that, Cody was obviously a leader, has uses his voice at the right times. But Cray really is almost a baby. Saying he's a babysitter seems a little bit patronizing, but really keeps everybody on tabs.
A father figure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he works a construction job in the summer. So, like, he does it all. And so I was interested to hear that. And I think he'll do good, especially with those student transfers coming into the running back room, showing them the ropes. This is how we do things here. And then also, I mean, I think just the special teams thing alone, Missouri didn't have a problem last year with getting guys to play special teams, but that is a big thing. And I think really plays into creating that buy-in again of you have to be all about the team. So that's my answer right there. It's all going to come down to the leadership, culture, and buy-in they're able to create in order to create that momentum.
All right, so on that note, you're on the inside up there in Missouri, and look, the outside perspective of Eli Drinkwitz, I like him just because I think he's fun. Mm-hmm. But the outside perspective is this guy's a clown. This guy's not serious. Mm-hmm. This guy, is he really an SEC coach? Well, last year's results, I mean, come on, they speak for themselves. So you talk about the culture, you talk about the buy-in. Sometimes maybe the messaging gets a little worn out in certain situations. I'm not saying that's happened at Missouri or will happen at Missouri. You tell us, what is Eli like? And do you think that maybe his messaging, and I mean, some of it's a little corny, but I think the connection with his players is really, really strong. Do you worry about, maybe he's not as serious, or maybe he's too much of a buddy with the friend? Educate us from the outside perspective about who Eli Drinkwitz really is.
Yeah, I wrote a piece about this right after the Cotton Bowl, really on just Drinkwitz and specifically the changes he made from 2022 to 2023. And the main focus of that was handing up the play calling duties, but also just on his personality and his ability to connect with the players, which is a big thing. And one of the things I focused on there, and I really find coaches fascinating to analyze, really. And the main thing or not the main thing, but one of the things I focused on was just his personality and how that kind of affects him as a coach. And that's kind of one of my favorite things to look at with coaches. One of my favorite projects ever is the Play Callers podcast by Jordan Rodriguez that focused on Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, that whole coaching tree, and on how she interviewed all of them, interviewed a bunch of sources close to them too, really wanting to get to know the people first. And that also is so intertwined with how they coach, how they connect with their players, but also like literally their play calling. And it's really fun to watch that. And that was the thing with Drinkwitz. I don't know if I could make a connection from his personality to his play calling.
Well, he's creative. I think he's a creative offensive mind.
Most definitely. And I guess he did give a play calling this year, so it'd be Kirby Moore's personality. And Kirby Moore, he calls a lot of explosive plays. He's not a very explosive person, with all due respect to him. But yeah, I do think the most important thing is being yourself. That goes for any leader, I think. And I think guys can really see that in Coach Drinkwitz. And I think, not only seeing and appreciating his genuineness, but also realizing that they kind of have to take that on with themselves, that they need to be their own individual person in the locker room and really be their authentic self. And that goes a long way. And I do think, it does, with the messaging he does online and with, just kind of the corny persona he has. I think that's one side of it. And that's mainly what we see too. But I think behind closed doors, it just seems like he does, he can have fun like that, but also has the ability to really talk to these guys. And with that genuineness can really show also that he cares about them as people. That goes a long way in recruiting, obviously. And so as far as having concerns that'll, at some point wear out, or some guys will eventually not start buying in, I wouldn't say so. I mean, he's definitely not Nick Saban, doesn't have that, straight-faced personality. But I definitely think, like I said, having that genuineness really leads to authentic connection, and guys appreciate that.
All right, so it's going to be a huge season for Missouri because you want to follow up the great Cotton Bowl win and really a 10-11 win season last year with another good season. But you're bringing Texas and Oklahoma into the conference. No more divisions. You don't get to play your Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky's of the world. Let's flip to the schedule real quick. Yeah, Vanderbilt is on the schedule, but I don't see Kentucky. Sorry, I don't see some of these other SEC Eastern teams. Florida's not on there this year. But it looks like an easy ramp up. You go through Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt, and then you're off. We don't want to do a game-by-game prediction yet. We'll do that the next time you're on. Tell me about the games. You already hit the Oklahoma game, but if you want to expound on it, please do. And hopefully we will see you here in Tuscaloosa on October 26th. What are some of these milestone or big games this year that you're like, ooh, that's going to be really intriguing, or ooh, Missouri's going to be on national TV for this game, or ooh, we'll have the eyes of the nation right here on this matchup?
Yeah, I think that 2-game stretch of Alabama and Tuscaloosa, and then Oklahoma and Columbia are very exciting. They have a bye week in between there. But that, is the one game a lot of fans wanted College Game Day to come to Columbia last year when they were playing LSU in week 6. That didn't end up happening because LSU didn't come to their end of the bargain. But yeah, the Oklahoma one, I think, is going to be a massive game for Missouri, not only for just the spectacle of it all, Oklahoma reigniting this rivalry, and all of that, but also just what it's going to mean for the postseason potentially. It's week 10,
right?
So they have their bye right before that. After they play Oklahoma, they play South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Certainly not the toughest stretch of SEC opponents right there. So that's definitely the biggest game I have circled right now. Again, like I said, the spectacle of it all, having that rivalry that's already been brewing on social media. I'm very excited for that one. I have a wedding to go to the night before. So if College Game Day is there, I might be, the wedding is in St. Louis. So I might be pulling all-nighter if College Game Day makes an appearance and try to get a nap in during the 12 o'clock slate of college games.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun next year. Are there college football playoff expectations surrounding the Missouri program? Top 12, we want to get in the first 12-team playoff. Is that an expectation? And will there be a big disappointment if they're just on the outside, or is there going to be some grace?
Yeah, I think if it's a situation like it was in 2023 where, they beat one of Georgia or LSU, and they're a lot closer. I think, if they seal the deal against Georgia, then they're probably playing in the SEC title game. And they were really close in that Georgia game. Yep. I think if that happens again this year, there's going to be quite a bit of disappointment. But I would say there definitely is the expectation for them to make the 12-team playoff, be a top contender in the SEC. A few weeks ago at a event in St. Louis, Eli had a press conference, and he I forget exactly how he went, but he was talking about this upcoming season, and he originally was going to say something like, we want to bring SEC championships home, and he cut himself off there. Like he said, bring S, and then he said national championships home. That 12-team playoff, they talked about it a few times on the screen. That's the goal, and anything short of that, I don't know about the fan base, but anything short of that for the coaching staff will be seen as a disappointment. Especially, obviously, if you're a good program, you're going to be constantly recruiting good players, but this will likely, unless Luther has a freak injury, probably be the last year you have Luther Burden on the team. Probably last year you have Theo Weiss on the team. Last year of that Brady Cook, or Luther connection. So this will be a big moment for them. Big season, and really, having to prove, like you mentioned earlier, Joe, that the 2023 was not a fluke season.
All right, so last thing for you with Joey Van Zummeran of MizzouCentral. Make sure you're reading him at MizzouCentral.com or following him at JoeyVZ_. We had 5 first-team All-SEC candidates. You've already hit on Luther Burton, and we're going to lock him in like he's going to be another first-team All-SEC guy.
Yeah.
One of them, Cody Schrader. I'm just reading Cody Schrader, Luther Burton, Javon Foster, Darius Robinson's gone, Chris Abrams-Drain is gone. Outside of Luther Burton, Who do you think are going to be, okay, these couple of guys might be best in the conference? It might be tough for Brady Cook to get over the Carson Beck hump, or maybe the Jalen Milroe hump. We'll see. Who's going to be joining Luther Burton as, these guys are first-team All-SEC players?
So two guys that I wanted to highlight is first Armand Mimbu, who's the right tackle. Kind of flew under the radar last year just with, John Foster also on that offensive line, but really a great player for Missouri. And then also, this might be a year premature, but I think tight end Brett Norfleet, he was part of the All-SEC freshman team last year. And I was going into last year, I don't know if it was just the St. Louis bias in me, but he was one of the players I was really excited to watch in his freshman season. And, started off kind of slow, but then he had a great reception in that LSU game. There's like a 30-yard pass down the right sideline that he just arched over a defender to catch. And I need to look up, I believe he's just insane measurables, and I want to make sure I have this right because he's so great.
Tight ends. I love tight ends.
Yes, and he is truly a picture-perfect tight end for tight end lovers like you and me, Joe, because not only is he an incredible receiver, but he is also one of the best blocking tight ends I've ever seen. I mean, this dude will, if you look at his high school tape where he's playing with much smaller, not SEC guys, he is just throwing dudes off of him like Reggie White did to Chris Carter. And just the other way around with Norfleet on offense, 6'7", 235. I had economics class with this guy too. So there's one day when he sat in front of me and it just
you couldn't see the whiteboard?
Yes, exactly. Just massive guy. So like I said, might be a year or two premature, but you could really see him last year getting into groove and establishing connection with Brady Cook. So those would be the three that I would really highlight. On defense, it's just such a question mark because they're losing a lot of their top contributors and not knowing exactly how he's just going to be used in Corey Batoon's system. I guess Toriano Pride would be the main name that I throw out there.
It's Joey Van Zummeran joining us from MizzouCentral.com. Please make sure you follow him at JoeyVZ_ for not only Missouri coverage, but for Green Bay Packers coverage as well. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I appreciate you so much, Joey. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Joe. You too.
Yes, sir. That's Joey Van Zummeran joining us. I appreciate it every time he can give us some expertise. We're expanding our coverage on the Walsh Writing Network right here on the Joe Gaither Show, diving into Missouri, some Mississippi State, some NBA with the Spurs, some Major League Baseball with the Kansas City Royals, and we'll keep expanding as Chris Walsh expands his own network. We appreciate everybody who's joined us today on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You joined us at Joe Gaither 6, or you joined us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review to the Bama Central YouTube channel. You can see great videos like the Alabama softball team getting ready to go to Oklahoma City. It's already up on our page, and you can see all kinds of behind-the-scenes coverage on the Bama Central YouTube channel. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. It's going to be, oh my gosh, a huge day for Alabama basketball tomorrow. We're going to be biting our fingernails. Is Jaron Stevenson? Is Mark Sears? Are they staying in the draft, or are they coming back to Alabama? We'll be all over it tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.